I'll try to do my best here in terms of, let's say, in the spirit of Price's Fun Palace project, thinking of my head as a gantry crane that's somehow trying to move back and forth across the room. But I'd just like to make a note that actually what I'm going to be speaking about today was very much so born out of some archival research that I did here at the CCA in January of 2015, I believe it was, where I actually came thinking that perhaps Price had some connection with the history and development of pneumatics. And over the course of a few days, I realized that he was actually the key figure to this narrative. So this is certainly part of a larger project for me in terms of a historical inquiry into pneumatics and perhaps why and how the project fizzled out by the mid-1970s. And soon thereafter, Giovanna invited me to contribute a short piece for the Other Architect exhibition here at the CCA. So for some of you, if you've read that piece, this is an elaboration on it. And I also wanted to thank Lev, who's here today, who so wonderfully edited the piece. And although it was very condensed in the number of words, he made sure that I was incredibly precise in how I executed that language. So thank you very much. Right. So Cedric Price, radical pragmatist in pursuit of lightness. In October 1970, Cedric Price graced the cover of AD. Created by Adrian George, this illustration of Price inflating himself marked the first in a series of 5 pull-out Cedric Price supplements from October 1970 to January 1972. Here, Price is referred to by AD editor Peter Murray, quote, as one of the prime movers on the radical architecture scene. Yet because his work is consciously anti-style, sometimes even at the expense of comprehensibility, end quote, a revisitation of Price's proposals offers readers a closer glimpse into both the architect's dossier and personality. Featuring, but not limited to, Price's pneumatic explorations in the 1960s, the supplements catalog his production in the form of project proposals and writings. In the supplements, whose pages were designed to be pulled out so that readers could file, recollate, add to, or even throw them away, Price provides comments on each project entry, including current developments, clarifications, self-criticism, and personal anecdotes. Indexed using code letters, organizational themes were not defined until the end of the series, demonstrating Price's commitment to user interaction and open-ended systems thinking. Although seemingly loosely scripted from the onset, Price clearly outlined, yet temporarily withheld from readers, his motivations for the supplement series. Getting back to the cover, this is the Price who by 1970 had risen to the ranks of architectural counterculture, known to his contemporaries as a utopian architect, father figure to archigram, anti-preservationist, pneumatic pioneer, and architectural provocateur. This image also reinforces the Price we know all too well, an iconoclast visionary, notorious for breaking rules, or at least casting a reconsideration of them in architecture altogether. Similar to this cover of AD, history continually reaffirms the image of Price as a utopian architect. But who was the real Price? Despite his characterization as a playful dreamer and radical visionary, Price was also a hardcore pragmatist. It is precisely this mode of operating as an architect with a capital A and a practitioner with a capital P that I would like to focus on today. Since forming his practice in 1960, Price was a persistent critic of normative architecture. In the context of post-war Britain, his architecture reflected a society under transformation as well as anticipated inevitable change. By exploring qualities of indeterminacy and interactivity, Price repositioned architecture and the architect as an active agent in redefining British culture in an era of social and economic uncertainty. Whereas many of his contemporaries sought to dismantle or to disintegrate buildings into alternative forms of architectural ephemera, such as postcards, telegrams, magazines, dirigibles, and tents, Price was focused on building the foundations for architecture's future. In his quest for a redefinition of architecture, Price recast the role of the architect as a radical pragmatist. For instance, this typical progress chart published in the AD supplement was devised by Price as an instrument of professional service. Designed to be used for any job, Price comments that it is, quote, an extremely painless way of explaining, rapidly at both the inception of work and during its progress, one's own preferences and assessment of capacity of success, end quote. Adding that the chart system is his copyright, Price reaffirms his role as the radical pragmatist. Rather than simply breaking the rules, Price sets out to script a new set of terms or parameters through which new forms of architecture can be generated. Price was less interested in buildings. He deemed them fixed, static, inflexible, and obsolete, and more intent on structures that could anticipate future change and use. As an architect, Price operated at a variety of scales to identify problems and to offer solutions. He also planned for the removal, reuse, or demolition of his structures after they were no longer deemed useful. For him, each design problem was investigated as a unique scenario. He believed that building was not always the best solution. His belief that buildings were not always the best solution led Price to explore new forms of architectural production. This is why in the early 1960s, Price worked to bring attention to the potential of air, which until then had been mostly invisible to architecture. Price's explorations with pneumatic structures included A, multi-membrane medium and low-pressure passenger coach, B, an inflatable community hall comprised of sealed high-pressure tubes and pneumatic low-pressure multi-membrane skin, C, a controlled triple balloon lifting device enabling rapid ship-shore transit of goods, D, a reusable medium to long-span pontoon bridge, and E, a circular cinema contained in a corseted inflatable skin. Although radical in their inception, these and other pneumatic proposals by Price were not about image making. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he was thoroughly committed to the technical aspects of pneumatics. From 1967 to 1974, Price played a key role in international discussions about pneumatic structures. In the company of experts like Frei Otto and Walter Bird, Price established himself as an advocate for air structures, prompting architects to explore non-conventional solutions when working with this building type. For example, at the first International Colloquium on Pneumatic Structures in Stuttgart, Germany in 1967, Price acknowledged that inflatables were falling short of their potential to revolutionize architectural thinking. He states, quote, pessimistically, I consider that the application in the field of structures of pneumatic techniques is too involved with solving normal structural and shelter problems, end quote. Price also identified a lack of communication and coordination between disciplines and advocated for the sharing of pneumatic knowledge and expertise. Following their collaboration on the London Aviary and Fun Palace, Price and Frank Newby, an engineer, formed Air Structures Research in 1963 as a think tank to promote the advancement of pneumatic architecture. The two defined the scope of the project as follows, quote, the present use of pneumatic structures is too limited to ad hoc solutions. Thus, this project is not only concerned with a more rational determination of their contribution to existing national problems, but also to enable their potential, that is mobility, flexibility, fixed lifespan, etc., to be fully appreciated when decisions are made on the beneficial extension of human and operational activities. At this time, Price was actively engaged with exploring a range of applications for pneumatics. For example, he developed a line of inexpensive air-inflated furniture designs, including chairs, seating modules, and a variable floor. These investigations, although small in scale, allowed Price to see the potential in air structures, namely the economic and cultural advantages of transient environments, flexibility, adaptability, economy, comfort, etc. Yet Price's explorations were not limited to the scale of the body or house. Rather, he was continually searching for new opportunities to test the potential of pneumatics to solve real-world problems. In 1967, Air Structures Research proposed surface oil containment, a solution to mopping up oil spills at sea. Comprised of dracones, flexible rubberized canvas containers 300 feet long with a 14-foot diameter, filled with fresh water, Price's idea was to tow a string of them behind a boat and lasso oil spills, which could then be disposed of or towed away. Apparently, Dunlop, the manufacturer of dracones, further developed Price's scheme with the National Research and Development Council by adding an oil mixture into the dracone itself, but failed to include Price in the process. By offering inventive solutions to real-world problems, Price not only demonstrated the versatility of pneumatics, but likewise the expanded role of the architect. Price was also taking copious notes, working through definitions and the potentials of air structures. His systematic approach to indexing and cataloging information demonstrated not only a curiosity, but likewise a commitment to the production and dissemination of knowledge. In 1966, Price and Newby approached the British Ministry of Technology with a proposal to research the design and implementation of air structures. In 1968, they were commissioned by the Department of the Environment to undertake a survey on pneumatics for the British construction industry. As Air Structures Research, Price and Newby conducted visits to government, industrial, and academic centers across the UK, USA, France, and Germany. Their findings were published in 1971 as Air Structures, a Survey. Organized into 8 chapters, the 240-page report covers the history, basic principles, and applications of air structures. Encyclopedic in nature, the survey provides both a cultural and technical inventory of successful pneumatic applications and construction techniques. Basic definitions and diagrams lend an accessibility to novice readers, while complex mathematical formulas and illustrations appease even the most technically adept. Ample evidence supports detailed scenarios of collapse, anticipating failure as a generative tool for design. Featuring extensive illustrations, photographs, and charts dealing with detailed design aspects of air structures and their costs, the publication includes both speculative and built work, as well as a number of proposals for future research. According to Philip Takeman, who has written extensively about the role of manuals in architecture and engineering, quote, Air Structures, a Survey serves as an example of a retroactive mode of design research, one that instrumentalized a collection of precedents to form a novel construction methodology. Excuse me, stay on this one. Despite the rising popularity of pneumatic and inflatable structures in the early 1960s and 70s, there was little documentation of successful applications in construction techniques. What Price and Newby offered was, in their words, quote, a thorough assessment of the state of knowledge and experience current at that time. Professionally, they had encountered skepticism from both clients and building authorities about the viability and safety of air structures. That is, primarily concerns about structural failure and fireproofing. In order to innovate and to pave the way for a pneumatic future, Price and Newby believed that transparency and collaboration between various industries and disciplines was essential. Air Structures, a Survey, advanced pneumatic architecture through the formation and sharing of collective knowledge and expertise. Notwithstanding the wealth of information provided by this publication, it was actually the process of its creation that warrants further investigation. As a survey, it relied heavily on questionnaires, which were systematically sent out to an international cast of pneumatic designers, fabricators, manufacturers, researchers, and analysts. As illustrated here, questions address general, technical, environmental, theoretical, maintenance, economical, and other miscellaneous issues pertaining to air structures. For Price and Newby, this extensive data collection, typically in the form of correspondence, interviews, conferences, and site visits, facilitated transparency between various forms of expertise. Their extensive catalog of detailed notes and sketches taken during visits to authorities and air structures offers insight into the range of inquiries and findings. For example, as we see depicted here, but obviously we can't really see it, a private research institute in Germany developing a patent to counter UV degradation in pneumatic membranes, and meetings with Walter Bird of Bird Air Structures in Buffalo, New York, to discuss the durability and cost of various materials and methods. These and other numerous site visits conducted by Price and Newby were instrumental in the formulation of their manual. In addition to providing a thorough assessment of contemporary knowledge, experience, and application of air structures, Price and Newby's motivation was to establish a consensus on building specifications and codes so that air structures could be regulated and their development encouraged. As they explain, quote, "At the outset, it was felt that the lack of cooperation and coordination within the industry and research and development establishments was detrimental to the development of air structures," end quote. By introducing more transparency between industry, government, and potential users, their efforts expose the untapped potential of pneumatics. Despite a lack of further government sponsorship following the publication of their research, Price and Newby continued to explore the technological and cultural potential of air structures. In 1971, they formed the Lightweight Enclosures Unit, or LEU, and expanded their focus to the social, economic, and structural development of lightweight enclosures, including but not limited to air-supported, reinforced plastic, and steel or reinforced concrete space frames. By soliciting information, typically through detailed questionnaires, from an increasingly expansive list of manufacturers, users, and potential users, Price and Newby aimed to compile and regularly update a comprehensive file on lightweight enclosures. As demonstrated by this chart, it was through a thorough and multi-phase endeavor, not unlike Air Structures, a survey. These investigations into lightweight enclosures sought to promote their development through the production of knowledge and sharing of expertise. For example, their Air Structures bibliography of 1972 was an up-to-date survey of key texts on pneumatics. A systematic catalog, each entry has a brief synopsis and table of ratings that rank its usefulness based on 11 categories ranging from innovation to cost. This data was to be updated regularly by LEU and published for the benefit of the industry as a whole, further illustrating Price and Newby's commitment to the democratization of disciplinary and professional expertise. And here we see two different entries in the Air Structures bibliography, the top one being Price and Newby's own Air Structures, a survey which they actually rate. Parallel to the production of this bibliography, Price and Newby developed a proposal for a variable roof over an existing pedestrian mall in South End. Although this image succinctly captures their radical pursuit of lightness, additional sketches and drawings begin to convey the structural and material complexities of a dynamic roof. Comprised of 3 plastic-coated nylon fabric tubes, 5.5 meters in diameter, suspended from a central steel or aluminum supports with cables, the roof was designed to accommodate for rain, snow, and wind loads with an anticipated lifespan of 5 to 10 years. Although never actualized, the client did, after all, express reservations referring to the roof as a Martian caterpillar. South End Roof demonstrates Price and Newby's facility to synthesize their air structures research into built form. According to Newby, quote, "The design of air-inflated tubes is not difficult. It is the problem of erection, deflection, vibration, and support that are critical and time-absorbing. Structures are supposed to be safe, and the use of new technology can be disastrous if all likely causes of failure are not identified and catered for in design." Price and Newby meticulously researched ideas and drafted protocols to enable greater access to information and standardization for the further growth and acceptance, not only of pneumatics, but also of lightweight structures in general. The pioneering spirit involved invitations from the British Standards Institution, or BSI, to produce a code of practice for air-supported structures. In 1973, Price and Newby were commissioned by the Department of the Environment to prepare a draft for development code of practice for air-supported structures for general use by industry. By implicating building officials and governmental authorities, Price and Newby not only facilitated the sharing of intelligence, but also introduced specific methods and tools to anticipate and affect the future of the built environment. As ambassadors of lightweight, flexible, economical, and user-defined environments, Price and Newby advocated for an architecture that transcended conventional modes of construction and habitation, as indicated by the sampling of business cards they collected at the U.S. Air Structures Conference in Las Vegas in 1974. Every conversation, interaction, and exchange was carefully annotated and treated as an integral piece in their pneumatic puzzle. In their pursuit of lightness, namely the formation of air structures research and the LEU, Price and Newby attempted to instrumentalize the economics of construction and the politics of the British building industry. Now, in conclusion, in Architecture and Utopia, first published in 1973, Manfredo Tofuri writes, quote, "In the face of the new techniques of production and the expansion and rationalization of the market, the architect as producer of objects had indeed become an inadequate figure. It was now no longer a question of giving form to single elements of the city, nor even to simple prototypes. The real unity of the production cycle having been identified in the city, the only suitable role for the architect was as organizer of that cycle," end quote. Rather than focusing on the production of objects, Price operated as a policy auteur, reinstating the agency of practice. He was concerned with the possibilities that architecture generated rather than an obsession with buildings proper. In fact, he was famous for telling clients that they don't need a new building at all. He also successfully petitioned the Royal Institute of British Architects for the right of architects to advise clients to do nothing when that was deemed appropriate. Price's commitment to achieving social improvement through the built environment was as much about raising questions as it was about solving problems. He was less interested in buildings. He deemed them fixed, static, inflexible, and obsolete, and more intent on structures that could anticipate future change and use. This is why in the early 1960s, Price worked to bring attention to the potential of air, which until then had been mostly invisible to architecture. Cedric Price was a radical pragmatist in pursuit of lightness. As a colleague recently stated, Cedric Price doesn't need to be a hipster to be cool. He's at his most radical when he's taking on the normal. Thank you.